my name is Yolanda Olivares. This is Block 2 in American Independence. So today I'll be talking about 8 different topics, and I'm going to be starting off by the end of salutary neckline. So since there was a lot of British merchandise being bought in the American colonies, most Americans were feeling like British and they were thinking about themselves, like what did they needed. So the anti-salutary necklace was basically a British policy to avoid enforcement of several laws because of how the Americans were feeling now, like British. They were thinking for themselves. So the second topic I'm going to be talking about is the 7 Years' War. So I started off with the French. They had a stable alliance with the Indians so they could be able to trade fur. However, the Pennsylvania and several other different colonies intersected, and what this caused conflict. So it began in 1754 over the land where the Indians and French were able to trade the fur, and it involved the European, the Caribbean, and Indian. However, the British expected a fast victory from 3 different fronts, but it took more than 5 years. It took like 7, basically. The name says it. So when William Pitt became Britain's prime minister, he took over, and American and British troops were able to capture the forts of Duncancy and some other places, and well, the British won. However, the colonists had different perspectives. They believed that their American colonists, American people or soldiers, had been treated badly by the British arrogant soldiers, and well, this war caused a lot of lost. A lot of Americans lost their families, their husbands, their sons, and well, the money. So the third topic I'll be talking about is the Proclamation of 1763. So George III became king around this time. And Earl of Bolton, he kept soldiers in the colonies after the 7 Years' War so they could be protected by any Indians uprisings, which were the Indians did uprisings. So the Proclamation of 1763 forbidden colonists to settle west of the Appalachian Mountains to separate the Indians and the settlers. However, this really wasn't possible to enforce, because a lot of colonists had already settled in the west of the Appalachian Mountains, and it was really hard for them to move. So they just couldn't, they wouldn't, since they had already had everything there. So the fourth topic I'll be talking about is the Parliamentary Revenue Act. At this time, the person who started this was Prime Minister George Grenville. He was trying to make up money so he could pay off the debt of the 7 Years' War. So he started by the Sugar Act, putting taxes in the sugar. The other purpose about the Sugar Act was to regulate trade, since there was a lot of smuggling. However, it really wasn't possible. He didn't decrease a lot of trade smuggling. So the second Revenue Act was the Stamp Act. It was a tax on all papers for official documents. And well, this impacted the people a lot because there was a lot of official documents like the newspapers, marriages, and so on. So then this caused for people to question if Parliament had the right to tax. So then after the news traveled, the first organization to resist began in Boston, 1765. One of the leaders was Samuel Adams. In Boston, that's where they created the Sons of Liberty. So at the end, they repelled the Stamp Act, but they created the Declaration Act, asserting Parliament's right to legislate for colonies. Okay, so they were able to get rid of the Stamp Act, right? But since they needed something to assert Parliament's right to legislate, they replaced the Stamp Act with the Declaration Act. So the sixth topic I'll be talking about is the Boston Massacre. there was a lot of tension in Boston already because of this rebellion with revenue acts. So it continued with the humiliation of Hutchinson's brother shop. The two brothers, they were humiliated. And then with the official Ebenezer Richardson, he shot a young boy that was passing by. A crowd that was surrounded Richard's house. So these people were super shocked, like why would he just shoot a young boy that was just passing by? And well, this got a lot of people angry as well. So in March 5, 1770, a crowd counted eight British soldiers that were guarding the custom house. Finally, one soldier just couldn't take it with the crowd throwing rocks and snowballs, and one of the soldiers fired. And here's a small demonstration. That was the Boston Massacre. So Hutchinson, the governor at this time, he jailed Captain Thomas, who was the leader of the rebellion of the crowd, and he also jailed the 8 soldiers for their protection. However, after a fair trial, only 2 were released and the 6 were slaughtered. They were killed. So the second topic I'll be talking about today is the Tea Act and the Boston Tea Party. Since Dutch tea was being smuggled, Lord North's Prime Minister allowed the East India Company to sell tea directly to the government, since people weren't obeying the Tea Act, which was a tax on tea without the smuggling of it. So, because of this, the Boston people were really angry. And here's a small demonstration of what happened that day, or the Boston Tea Party. 100 to 150 men dressed up as Indians, and they threw the tea into the harbor. However, this got Lord North really angry, and that caused for the Coercive Acts, which punished the Massachusetts people for destroying the tea, and America is known as the Intolerance Act. So the sixth topic I'll be talking about is the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Actually, it's the seventh topic. So in the winter of 1774 to 75, America pressed on with the boycott, forcing to repeal the Coercive Act. They just couldn't. They didn't want to be punished like that. I mean, after being taxed, they just didn't want. They wanted their tea and to be able to trade. So before they were able to organize more structurally, Thomas Gage, under the Lord North's instructions, planned a surprise attack at Concord. So on their way to Concord, they ended up in Lexington, where they met up with 70 armed men, and well, someone fired, and it caused a lot of bloodshed. So here's another visual for this battle. So when they got to Lexington, when they got to Concord, actually, 3 Minutemen didn't challenge them, right? Yet they were searching for ammunition. So in Old North Bridge in Concord, the troops and Minutemen fought, killing 2 Americans and 3 British. The Britain failed to find expected gunpowder, and the Americans failed to stop them. So the 8th topic I'll be talking about is the Olive Branch Petition. It was an attempt to assess the rights of the colonists while maintaining their loyalty to the British Crown. However, King George he refused to read this petition, and on August 3, he proclaimed the colonists had proceeded to open a rebellion. Okay, so the question is, for me, is at the end is whether I think if there could have been a reconciliation. I honestly don't think there would have been any reconciliation between the Americans and the British, since there was a lot of tension. One of the evidence was that at the beginning the British had too much power over them by being able to tax them, the Stamp Act and the Revenue Acts and so on. And colonists wanted to be in control. They didn't want to be controlled. So I think it started with the 7 Years' War that created a big hole in their debit and their money, and they had to fill it up. That's what caused the taxes, and that angered a lot of people. So I honestly don't think that they will have been able to reconcile. And well, thank you for listening.